Hi, I'm Alistair Shipley. Driven by the beliefs that everyone has something special to offer, I created Not So Average, the podcast that proves that you don't need to be in the top 1% to be truly extraordinary. Each episode spotlights everyday people from your community, the very individuals you might pass on the street. These relatable stories reveal that whether you're a jack of all trades or a niche specialist, we all have unique experiences and valuable lessons to share. Imagine if we all took a moment to realize we're all not so average. Let's get after it. Welcome to an episode of Not So Average. Today's guest knows what it's like to build a $100 million in revenue company and what it's like to lose it. Nick Thompson is a founder, coach, author, and a battle-tested business leader who's been through the highs of explosive growth and the lows of public collapse. He co-founded Brand Alliance, once one of Canada's most admired companies, and now mentors founders through EO, helping them avoid the very pitfalls he once faced firsthand. But this episode isn't about polished advice. It's about the raw, unfiltered truth behind success, how ego can sneak in when things are going well, and how culture is misunderstood. We talk about burnout, rebuilding after failure, the cost of silence, and the power of asking for help. And we ask the questions most entrepreneurs avoid. This one's for the entrepreneurs who've been burned by their own ambition, the leaders who lost the company but found themselves, and anyone learning that the real legacy isn't in what you build, it's how you grow when it all falls apart. Let's get after it. Welcome.
That intro just started making my stomach burn a little bit, but there you go.
With acid
The
reflux
truth,
or?
nah, just the truth, right? The truth of the matter. Everybody glorifies entrepreneurism, and there's a lot of hard truth behind the story, right? Behind the doors.
Have you found that over the last couple of years that entrepreneurship,
All of the above.
has been kind of glorified?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
What's
you
your
look
kind of
at
experience with that?
Look at it on social media.
Mhm.
It's quit your day job and start your own company. And why are you working for somebody else? And you're just building other people's dreams. And entrepreneurship is a tough gig, and it is not meant for everyone.
Nope.
It is not stable. There's very little, if none, security in starting a company. It's a grind. I work with probably 100 entrepreneurs a year, helping them grow businesses. And I would say that at least half of them would admit to, I haven't had a paycheck yet this year. It's a tough gig.
Yeah.
And they're putting everything in, every dime into growing their dream. So that's not for everybody.
No.
Most people want some stability. They like having a constant paycheck. They like being able to pay the bills. Raising a family, trying to start a business. Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
And so it is definitely over glorified. And because there's a certain skill set and mindset that comes with being an entrepreneur.
So you mentioned that you work with about 100 entrepreneurs a year.
Yeah.
Would you say that some of these skill sets are innately found in success stories, or are they things that can actually be taught?
Both.
Okay.
So kind of that nature nurture question, right? A lot of what I see in entrepreneurs, there is a common thread of grit and resilience, those two things. People that strive forward, believe in themselves, they have a lot of drive, and they have that grit, like I'll get through it and I'll find a way. That's definitely something that's fairly inherent. And most people are you can kind of see their childhood that way. When they go back, I'm sure you've seen this on your episodes, you go back in their history a little bit and you say, oh, okay, you did this and then you had this problem and this adversity and you overcame it. And there's kind of this, little thread of understanding why they became an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so that's one. The other one is resilience, they have the grit, but they also have the resilience just to keep going. I hear a lot of stories where, I had 100 no's before I had a yes.
Yep.
And, most people give up after 5,
Yeah.
right? And so that, that makes successful people in general. But it's definitely a, a common thread amongst entrepreneurs as well. Those two things I see.
Yeah. That's a fair point. It is really kind of cool. And a part of the premise of why I started this podcast was highlighting that success is rarely linear.
Mhm.
Um, and with that, obviously, comes the highs and lows. You often hear about the overnight successes, but if you really look at it, it's been a lifetime of building to that point.
Right.
Generally, I think one of my close friends, so he runs a cannabis company out of the Shuswap, and he's been involved with the bison ranch that it had its shortcomings and all this stuff. And he said statistically, it's on your fourth or fifth company that you reach success.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like, if I'm good, maybe I'll be on my third, but he's on to his second company right now. So I don't know. In your experience, how many times do people normally strike out before they see successes?
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the map, and luck has a lot to do with it for sure. I've seen where people just they lucked into making the right decision at the right time, and they look back and go, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're so brilliant! You foresaw this.
Yeah,
Where's your crystal ball?" And they're like, "Honestly, I
just kept
just
going.
lucked out, and it was just another decision." And I've seen probably more times where people made the decision and it was unlucky,
Hmm.
you know. And it is a lot like playing the stock market. If you, I did that back in the day when things were going really well and I had some extra pocket money, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at investments. And so I invested in some companies, and I started throwing some money into the stock market. And I just followed the stock. I didn't learn anything about the stock. They just said, "Oh, this one's a good one." So I'm sure I'll put into that. And it wasn't through a broker, it was just private investing.
Yep.
And I just let it ride and watch it. And 99% of those investments failed. And it's because, and I'm like, dummy, I should know this. You need to know what you're doing. You have to do your research. You have to follow it. You have to read up daily on how things are going. It's like anything we want to become professional at, we have to work at being professional. The 10,000 hours, the doing all the learning and all of that. So I should have known that going into those,
Hmm.
but it's the same with, business.
Yep.
If we want to make educated decisions, not just rash decisions or knee-jerk decisions based on, the market turns like it is a lot these days. And we don't want to make sort of knee-jerk decisions. We want to sit down and strategize,
Yep.
right? So
Okay.
yeah, I've seen it all over the map.
Fair.
Mm.
So let's go back a little bit.
Sure.
You built a company that hit $100 million in revenue and was one of the most admired in the industry that it was a part of. And then you've openly discussed this with me, and it's on your socials. It then had a collapse,
Yeah.
essentially. Let's go into what were kind of the early days like when you were with this company.
Yeah. So early days were really fun.
Yeah.
I came into ownership on the company in 2000
Okay.
and 12 staff, an office here, a local office here in Calgary, just making enough, about $1 million. So just making enough to join. I joined EO,
Okay.
Entrepreneurs Organization,
Right away.
right away. In fact, it was a friend of my dad's that was in YPO,
Yeah.
still in YPO,
Yeah.
actually, said, hey, if he's getting into business, he needs to look this organization up. It'll change his life. So back then, I literally went in the white pages
Yeah.
and looked up entrepreneurs. I phoned them and said, apparently, I'm supposed to be a member of this association. They had no
Hmm.
idea what to do with me because it's all referral based, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We know people and say, hey, my friend's got a business. I'm going to
Yeah.
get them to be a member. I became a member then, and that's when I started really learning about business concepts, best practices, and kind of getting involved there. And as I learned some of the best business practices, I would come back and I'd say, hey, I just learned something really cool. It's
Going back to
called,
the business.
go back to
Okay.
the people in the business and say, I learned these things called core values. Apparently, we're supposed to create some core values and live them, and it's part of the core foundation. I didn't know any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And so I work with the people, we create these core values. How do we live and breathe them? And we work on that. And then I'd come back again and say, I got a new idea, and it's about creating a big, hairy, audacious goal,
The
right? The
old
BHAG,
BHAG.
right? So it was all building, and I'm learning and bringing it back and learning some more, and we're using the different concepts to grow the business. And through the network of EO and ideas that came from other people in the organization, as well as building that network for sales, came ideas from all over that to just to listen to the idea, you're like, a lot of people would say, well, that's fine, but that's in a completely different business than mine. And my question always was, what if I did that thing in your industry,
Applied it.
applied it, that's normal in your industry, applied it to my industry? Could I be different? Could it be revolutionary? And so several ideas came in, and one in particular, a gentleman in the pharmaceutical business. So he owned a number of pharmacies. And he was talking about how small pharmacies, I'm going to paraphrase. So if anyone's in pharmaceutical, don't shoot me for the details. The way they set it up with small pharmacies is they all have ownership in a company. They create a company. All the small pharmacy owners have ownership in this company, and they use that as a buying company. So they buy all their products through this buying company, and that way they can get volume discounts and rebates, and they
Oh,
can
wow.
compete with big pharma because it's doing bigger volume. And I thought, oh, that's neat. And is that an idea you came up with? He said, no, that's just what happens. That's what we do in our industry. Cool. What if I did that in our industry? So my original company was in promotional marketing
Okay.
materials, branded merchandise. So anything you can put a brand on, we worked with companies and put their brand on it for different purposes. So what if we did that? Because we deal in products. So I went to 5 other companies in my industry in Canada, none in Calgary. So they're in other areas. So not a lot of crossover competition, and said, this is an idea. And I met them through trade shows or whatever. So I already knew them. This is the idea. And they loved the idea. And so we set up this company. And within a year of setting it up, we said, we're saving some on the cost, but what if this whole thing was together and we then started all selling as the same group? So clients I deal with here in Calgary, and we dealt with a lot of Fortune 500, 1,000 companies, big
Mm-hmm.
oil and gas companies, etc., telecom, insurance. And so we could tell our clients, no matter where you are in Canada, we have offices in the major cities. You can get consistent branding. And the clients loved it. So we merged. We merged 5 companies together.
Oh, wow.
Never been done before in the industry. And then we really grew rapidly from that. And that idea came from pharmacy.
Wow. So that's kind of like an outside or like a collective roll up.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. My accountants called it a butterfly roll up. I would never advise to do that. It was way more
Okay. Okay. Well, there's an interesting book that I recommend to a lot of my friends. It's called I'll Teach You How to Make a Few Billion Dollars or How to
expensive.
Make a Few Billion Dollars. And it's from the guy that started XPO Logistics, United Rentals, huge competitor to Waste Management, oil and gas. He's a phenomenal guy, but
Mm.
every one of his businesses did over $1 billion in valuation. XPL Logistics is one of the biggest right now, and his whole thing was finding an unaddressed industry that's really fragmented, landing there, then acquiring and merging
Right.
everybody, which is probably something we can get into with you about mergers and stuff like that in culture, because I know you've talked about that before.
Hmm.
But let's go into like leading to the hun or the business and kind of, I guess, the downfall of it. What were the pivotal moments, either good or bad, that really started to shift the trajectory of the business?
Yeah. I, the myself and the people I partnered with in Canada when we were growing the business, we had a common philosophy. And quite frankly, the reason we decided to merge is because we were very similar on our core values and culture.
Okay.
And we had all had the same value. If you grow your people, you'll grow your business. If the people are happy, the clients will feel it and they'll be happy, etc. So we created you mentioned it as award-winning culture, many culture awards, a lot of them nominated by our staff.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and so all over Canada, we're getting a lot of culture awards, Deloitte's top, best 50 managed companies, and very successful that way. And so it was what was happening was in the industry was saying, this has never been done before. What is this group doing? We were the largest by at least twofold of any other company in that industry in Canada at the time when we merged. And so people were looking at us saying, what are they doing? And they started hearing about all these culture awards and how happy our staff were. We had lots and lots of great programs. It was very self-managing atmosphere. And so people were knocking on our door, right? We want to work here. Customers were knocking on our door. Apparently, we're supposed to do business with. And it became quite easy to get new business and grow. We
Hmm.
need more employees. We've got a whole lineup of them right here. We didn't have to go to market very much for really good employees that knew what they were doing in the industry. So it was a really good feeling that people were coming to us. And we're like, okay, our philosophy of treating the people really well is working because it's attracting
Hmm.
like-minded people. And so I still have that philosophy to this day, and have started and grown a number of other companies, including one I'm doing right now with my wife, with the same philosophy. And so that was going really well. And then we got an opportunity. So between 2010 and 2015, we said, okay, so we're growing organically in all of the areas, but we want to be in more areas. So we put the word out that we're looking to acquire in different areas. And same thing, heard by reputation, people started saying, and it was an aging out business at the time. So people are like, hey, I've got an exit strategy. I've got a small company in the business. It's in a different area. So they started approaching us. And we were fortunate enough to sort of create this formula for acquisitions that we could decipher five things. And if we could say yes to all five of these things, it would be a good purchase. And so our job became looking and saying, no, no, oh, this one looks good. And then we
Hmm.
had a team that went in, negotiated. We had an integration team. And so we bought 20 companies in 5 years between 2010 and 2015, and it was going phenomenally well. Our first one was terrible because we didn't have the five yeses
Mm.
yet, so it took us about 4 years to turn that company around. But the rest of them seemed to be a win-win for everybody.
Interesting.
So we get to 2015, and we said we want a bigger outreach again, and we met a company in the U.S. that was doing the same thing we were doing. They were amalgamating, they were acquiring, they won culture awards, and we're like, oh, we should maybe partner up. And so we partnered up for about a year. That wasn't 2015, that was about 2014. We partnered up for about a year, and they would take care of our clients that had US division, and we would take care of their clients that had a Canadian. And so we were just doing it sort of arm's length, as a sort of dating period.
Okay.
And it worked really well because the clients absolutely loved it. And so we decided to merge these two companies. When we merged these two companies, I said, look, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a little bit of imposter syndrome here. This company's 100 million now. And I know how to grow small companies and work with groups where I know everybody's names and build those cultures. But I don't think I'm the person to lead this company into hundreds of millions into the billions. And so, so I was chair and president. I gave up my chairmanship to another gentleman in the company that has come from larger companies, new CEO of larger companies
Mm-hmm.
in North America. So I gave up my chairmanship. We created a new board. We said we need a board with outside board members. So we procured some very, very smart people from some large companies. They were past chairs of very large billion-dollar companies, lots of letters behind their name. And we put them on the board, and that's when things started to
Getting a little
not go
squirrely.
good. So we had a party the day of our merge down in Charlotte, which was our head office in the US. Our head office in Canada had become Toronto, just outside of Toronto. And we built warehousing on 5 continents so that we could take care of these big clients worldwide. And then we're going to start looking at possibly acquiring other continents as well. We had 20 offices in North America. We had 350 people. So it was growing at a good clip. So we had a party, merge party, and the morning after, we had our first new board meeting. And at our new board meeting, some of the new board members who are not, they're outside company board members,
Yeah.
said, okay, time to look at trimming the fat. And we want to get it so that we're scraping the bone. Like, these are the terms. And I was like, excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
That's, that wasn't something that was a discussion. And they're saying, look, there's a lot of opportunity for overlap and for consolidating things and automating and taking some roles away. And this whole give people the autonomy over their job thing, we need to get that control back. And I was like, oh, I think there's a mistake here. And so I started fighting with the board. And I was one vote out of 12 at that time. So I was getting outvoted, and they were cutting people. And it just started, the culture started to take a really fast down. And so, and the cuts were, they were wide and deep and hard.
Mm.
So the philosophy of the board was, thank you for your service. We're not going to need your position anymore. Here's your
Minimum severance.
package, and it's going to be 2 weeks. I know you've been here 8 years, but that's the starting point of negotiation. So in the US, they understand that they don't have a lot of employment law. And I'm trying to tell them, like, in Canada, we have a lot of employment law.
Yeah.
And in fact, that is an insult to a Canadian, right? That's worked somewhere for 8 years. And they're like, it's just negotiation. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not how Canadians feel about it.
Yeah.
We believe in fairness. But they wouldn't listen. So all of a sudden we have lawsuits coming in, and it was getting pretty messy, and I'm really upset and still fighting with the board and not winning anything. And one of the departments we're a marketing company.
Yep.
We had a marketing department, okay, international marketing department, did all of our marketing for us. The head of that department, who reported to one of the other partners, not to me, was my wife. And the first department they decided they wanted to cut, guess which?
Happy fun at home.
I'm saying, well, we can't do that. We're a marketing company. What are we telling our clients if we cut our marketing department? We're telling our clients marketing is the first thing that should be cut. And I said, this isn't gonna bode well here. So they did the same thing to her. I said, well, she's gonna have some sort of fair compensation and whatnot. They did the same thing. Here's your 3 weeks because you've been here 12 years. And so she said, I don't know what to do with this. And I said, we got to go see a lawyer. And so my wife sued my company.
Yeah.
And not a good situation.
No.
And it was
How did that hold up with the board members?
they're like, just negotiation.
Yeah. They just saw
And
it as another
I'm
person.
going out of my mind. I'm going out of my mind. And so that was a horrific time for her. She was in, probably took her 6 months to settle to what she should have been offered in the first place as far as Canadian
Standards.
negotiation
Yeah.
goes, right? And so that was horrific. And that was in 2015, late 2015. In 2016, I came back to her with an idea to start a company, and that's the one we've got now. And so she started this company, Vea, and so that started to go well. And in 2017, I was still very upset about how things going. Things were tanking. Nobody's knocking at the door. People are walking out of their jobs.
Yeah.
Culture was horrible. And I said, I don't know what to do. And my wife said, do you think you can turn the board around? I said, not at all. And she said, well, I think you know your decision. So we had our own employment contracts, and
Yeah.
I didn't sign mine and said, I'm not going to sign this. I was still president of the Canadian arm, and I said, I'm not going to sign this until we can sit down and reverse the damage that's being done with employees. And they said, okay, see ya.
Jeez.
So I was standing on the outside of my company.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was a horrific time. However, you mentioned, having grown a successful company, but then losing it all. So I did lose it all.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do my own legal battle. I didn't get anything for my shares. They had deeper pockets. And uh, I had to then look in the mirror for about 2 years on how the hell did I get here?
So, can we go back to what you were talking about, where you had to spend 2 years looking at yourself in the mirror?
Mm,
One thing that a lot of people don't really get, I guess, the line of sight into is how you dig yourself out and kind of the mental battles that come with that. So
hmm.
I want to just point blank kind of ask you, like, how
Sure.
did you dig yourself out mentally, emotionally, and
Right.
maybe even financially after the loss of the company?
Yeah. So remember when I talked about grit and resilience?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I did, so I had a lot of support through my EO network, my EO forum group. They all knew I was devastated. It was a very low point in my life. And my wife, of course, was very supportive. She had started the company. I still had in my contract was a 2 year severance package because it was written into my contract. They wanted to put severance packages in our compensation committee when we merged the companies, and I'm like, why would we do that? Like, we're shareholders. And so, when I look back on it, there was these pieces they were lining up,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a corporate takeover. And so they said, no, no, we want to put the severance into the contract. It's a safeguard for you. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, then I want 2 years, a standard one. So they wrote it in. And I thought nothing of it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then it came to this, and I was like, oh, now I'm out of a job, but I at least got 2 years. And so that's why I can say I looked in the mirror for 2 years because I did have income coming in. But at the same time, I just dabbled in a few little things. I had no idea what I wanted to do next.
Well, like emotionally, that must have,
Oh,
like, that was probably an identity piece to you
yeah,
at that point in time.
yeah,
What was the rebuild kind of look like?
yeah. A lot of sleepless nights,
Imagine so.
a lot of sleepless nights. And really, so when I say look in the mirror, I mean looking in the mirror. So what I ended up doing was every morning I would get up and look in the mirror and look at myself and say a self affirmation. And I actually practiced it with my wife, and she would say, maybe say this. It's a little
Mm.
more positive or whatever. And so
Words matter to
yeah,
us.
words matter. And I looked myself dead in the eyes and said, it was a sort of a 3 minute rant of word of affirmation
Every day, the same one?
every day, same one.
Hmm.
And it would give me just enough to convince myself, keep going. You'll be okay. You believe in people. you have a heart for helping people grow. That will always come back on you. The more you give, the more that will come back. You have a fantastic family. You have a fantastic network of
So that amber
people.
in you must
Yeah,
have been growing.
and just kept saying it, right? Just to keep something, for me, motivation to keep going.
Mhm.
And so when I say I looked in the mirror, I absolutely looked in the mirror, and I would do that every morning and every night. So I'd get up, I'd say it. When I go to bed, I'd say it again. I had a little slightly different version going to bed because I wanted to sleep, but
Good for you.
um, uh, so that was tough. And I will say during that period, I definitely drank more. I definitely wasn't taking care of my health as much because there was depression.
Hmm.
Um,
There's an identity
oh,
association to all
for
of
sure,
this, right?
for sure.
Like
I had
you can't
plenty of
help personalize
I
it
had
either.
plenty of personal awards too, and so you are identifying with that. And that was almost 20, 24 years in industry. So then I just kept my eyes open for opportunity and said, okay, let's look at rebuilding. My wife had this company, which actually started to gain some steam. And so in 2000, it was late 2017, so kind of a year into this, she said, look, this thing is growing and I need to get more staff and I need to make this a bigger, more real company. And you know how to do this. So will you partner with me? And so that gave me, some purpose.
Hmm.
And it was the same thing, building a great company with great
Did you
culture,
start
working with
slow or did you
people.
just completely dive into it?
Slow.
Okay.
Yeah, slow. Great question. So she's the CEO and she's operations, and that's what she's really good at. I'm good at being the visionary, bringing my network, bringing ideas from sources to help grow the company. And so I'm not a lot in the operations, which is good for me because then I could go and look at what else do I want. And that's when I got into I'd always been a coach and a mentor on a voluntary basis, and I looked at doing executive team coaching. I was approached by a number of organizations. I landed with Results
Hmm.
uh, here in Alberta, and I do executive team coaching with them now for just there's four of their clients on a consultant basis.
So I kind of want to ask about the mentorship stuff.
Yeah,
If I could just get my thoughts with me. Like mentorship is such a broad thing now. Some people incorporate coaching into it.
yeah.
Some people say that there's a difference. In your eyes, what makes a great mentor? And can you actually tell us about someone who actually made an impact on you that now you're maybe fostering some of their lessons and giving those to others?
Yeah. A number of people have had a big impact on me. Um, I mentioned I were talking earlier about my dad, who was always very close to
Mm-hmm.
to my parents. And growing up, he was a mentor, a coach, a cheerleader, definitely still a father, and a really close friend. And so we had a very good relationship with me growing up. And so he was definitely a mentor. He was always big on, I mean, he was studying Dale Carnegie when I was like a little kid. And so he was big
Yeah,
on,
the CD-ROMs and
oh, yeah, we
oh
had the
boy.
CD sets and all sorts of things. So all the kind of original self-help gurus
So
and
like the
what
Brian Tracy's and
Brian
stuff.
Tracy, all
Oh,
of that material.
how to
Yeah.
sell. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course that rubbed off,
Yeah.
and he would always be saying, well, he was a king of quotes, and he'd always be coming up with a quote. Well, so and so says this quote, and there's a famous saying, Nick. Like he would always have something, and that definitely rubbed off.
What was the
And
famous saying that sticks with you now?
one of his favorites, which really aligns to how my family is and how that core value of people has stuck with me, is he would say, it doesn't matter who they are. If you cut them, they still bleed the same color.
So it's humanizing
Yeah,
everybody.
humanizing everybody. And he was infamous for, no matter where he went, he would make friends with whoever. It could be busboy at the restaurant. It doesn't matter. It could be if the famous person that everyone's just gawking at, and he goes up and says, hey, how's it going? And he's like, they're all human. And so that was a really big thing in my family, and still is, that we're all here trying to get through a crazy one life,
It's our first time at it.
it's our first time, and it'll be the first time in 10 minutes from now, and it'll be the first time tomorrow. And so it's really important that we have this human connection, that we're all trying to move forward in our own way. And if I have the slightest bit of ability to bring happiness or help, it doesn't matter who you
Hmm.
are, I will do. And so that came from him. When you talk about the difference between mentoring and coaching, there's specific conversations, bringing in tools, and coaching is about bringing out your self-awareness of, do you realize this might be a blind spot, or have you thought in this direction before? Where as mentoring is sort of just talking from experience,
Hmm.
and here's what I tried, it worked for me, or here's what I tried, didn't work for me, and then you sort of take your own message and go your own direction. That's how I look at the difference between the two. One's a specific conversation that brings out awareness, and the other one is imparting wisdom,
Hmm.
and you do with it what you. And
Interesting.
I believe it's really important to have both because they serve different needs. So I've always had,
It's kind of the
um,
devil and the angel. You need them
yeah,
both.
yeah, I've always had different mentors and coaches. I have one now, and he's mentoring slash coaching my wife and I at the same time, and in specifically for how to grow and scale this business across North America.
Can I ask, is this coach slash mentor paid or just a personal interest in you?
Paid,
Okay.
paid, and I have mentors that are not paid too.
Yeah.
One, I one of the courses that we took last year through Results, they had a speaker come to their conference in Kananaskis, and she said, have a mentor for each different area of your life. And I was like, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Not just one mentor. Usually it's a mentor for business.
Yeah.
But if you want physical health is something, what about someone who's an expert in physical health? Can they
Did
mentor you?
Daniel happen to see this same speaker too? Because he
Um,
spoke about something similar on the episode.
he, I can't remember if
Or
he was
maybe
at the
you've
same.
spoken together about that stuff.
Maybe,
Yeah.
probably, yeah. And I thought, wow, that's a that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Not you just have one for specific
It's like your
areas.
approach when you're looking at the taking knowledge from the pharmacy or the
Right.
pharmacies, right? You want the best in class from this industry, the best in class from this industry. And in this case, it's from this lifestyle
Mm,
component to merge it into my perfect
right.
self or
Yeah.
relationship or health. So a lot of founders talk about ego and burnout and hustle culture. What's your relationship with the grind now?
Yeah. I have always had a healthy relationship with understanding.
Okay.
Back even in the early days when we were looking at how to grow this thing exponentially, I was I was and still am a very big advocate of having a healthy, balanced life. I know that the work is not the be all and end all. It's a means to an end,
Mm-hmm.
and family's more important, friends are more important, my health is more important, and I've seen so many business leaders that have sacrificed their health, and so they become billionaires, and then they spend all their money on medical, and I'm like, what's the and I've talked with billionaires again that said, I've got all this money, but I don't have a family because my family is left. Divorce, kids don't like me.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? Right? There was no end in that means. So, having had all those conversations, luckily at an earlier age when I was in my late 20s, starting this business, I said, I don't want to be like that. I'll, do not have a desire to be a billionaire because I know it takes, maybe there's some technology things nowadays that you can make a billion with a little less effort if you're talented in that area. But I know what it takes to get there, and I'm not willing to sacrifice that way. I want to live my life because we're just saying this is our first time,
Hmm.
and tomorrow's our first time experiencing tomorrow, and it only comes and goes once. So I want to experience it all. I want to experience life. I want to have loving relationships. I want to have time with my kids. And so I've always had a very healthy relationship. Some people said it, oh, you could grow probably twice as fast if you worked on weekends or something. I'm like, I do not work evenings and weekends. I just never, that's my life. And so one of the reasons why I put that out is because the grind is getting worse,
Yeah.
not better. And some people, more people have realized it since COVID. There's a lot of people sort of reevaluating, their situation in life. And so you can see people wanting to balance a little bit more. But man, that the grind is just killing people left, right, and center. And so I know that it's done me well because I've had such great life experiences up to this point. I haven't sacrificed those. I'm trying to think of the book that talks about balancing life with money. Die with Zero.
Die with zero.
Die with Zero. Awesome book about we're making money and spending some of it as we go so we can enjoy the things. He talks about the it's anti how we should live our lives. We work really hard. And then when we retire, oh, great, we hit retirement. Now we can spend money, but we're too old to experience some of the things that we wanted to experience when we were younger.
So you should almost be in semi-retirement from the beginning of
Yeah.
your career.
Yeah. And he's got great, great tips on how to live your life at the same time. And so he calls it like, sure, you want to give, okay, so you have kids. I want to give my kids a really good year. And he says, well, if you have that much money, why aren't you starting to give it to them now? Why wait until you're dead and they're 70 and they can't enjoy the money as much?
Mhm.
Why don't you start giving them money now? Now you can watch them enjoy the money. They need the money when they're younger. They don't need it when they're 70. Usually, you've already built your own.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a good point. And so my wife and I talked about like we kind of do live somewhat in that philosophy. We didn't know it was a philosophy. Just that we don't want to give up, our bucket list.
Yeah.
Bucket list. I had a bucket list item I knocked off 20 years ago was to go heli skiing. I can't do that. 80 something,
No, you definitely
right?
cannot.
So let's go. Do we have the money for it right now? Yeah, barely. Okay, I'll go do it. Do I miss the money? Absolutely not.
Nick Thompson starring in Bucket List too. I kind of want to get into stuff about your learnings with ownership and culture.
Sure.
So, how do you build a real accountability and decision-making skills into a team without micromanaging? This is a
Great.
personal question that I'm curious about right now.
Great. And it's a question I love to answer. So I deal with business owners that say, listen, forget all the culture is fluff. I just want to know, how do I get to results? I just want to get to results. I want the people to be accountable and to produce results. And I said, well, you'll never get that by shoving that in their face. It won't come, because people will produce results and be accountable if you open up the door for them to be accountable. What I mean by that is, I have this saying where you can't give accountability. Accountability has to be taken. So if you tell somebody, I want you to do this, get this result by this date, they are responsible for doing it, but you're ultimately accountable. It's your ultimatum. So you're still accountable because you're telling them what the result that you want produced.
Okay.
If you, instead you want them to take accountability. So this is your job. Here are the guidelines. Here are the resources. We'll give you the training. What kind of coaching do you need? What kind of support? You make the decisions inside those guidelines to fit you, and you work with people to say, what kind of result do you think you can produce? And put some
Interesting.
measurements and goals on that. Okay, now you want them to match. Typically, if you let somebody come up with their own goal, it'll usually be more than you thought of anyway, because they want to perform, because it's on them now. So there's going to be a certain amount of, oh, if this is on me, I need to perform these results. Giving them some of the autonomy and decision making and power over their own work, they will start to take accountability. And if they see that you are there to support them, oh, you're stuck somewhere, I'm here for your support, then they're going to have more trust and faith that they're in the right place. And they're going to
Interesting.
put more accountability on themselves.
I like the approach of letting them surprise you with their one creativity, their output, and they're a little more invested in the fact that this wasn't shoved down their throat.
Totally. And they're going to have more pride in their work because
Of course.
it's them that came up with it. It's them that are doing it. Now there's a couple key factors to that. Number one is we believe that, and this has worked really well, that mistakes are there to learn from.
Yeah.
We learn more from our mistakes than our successes. So if someone makes a mistake, they do not get admonished in.
No.
It is, they know the rule, and it's literally, we talk to them on onboarding, it's in our procedures manual, we reinforce it through meetings. The rule is, if you make a mistake, great.
Just let us
First,
know.
admit it. No, don't even let us know. Admit it, fix it, and then learn from it so you can prevent it in the future. That's it. And if you learned from it, the mistake was worth it. If you make a mistake repetitively, it means you're not learning.
No.
And we hire people that learn, right? They have a growth mindset like the rest of us. So we tell people that, and in fact, we'll celebrate that success. So we have people that have made mistakes. They said, I tell you, we want to hear from them. So if you have learned from a mistake and somebody else is doing the same job with other clients, they'll want to learn from you. So admit it, you fix it for the client, priority number one. And then what did you learn so you can prevent it? Oh, and by the way, I'm letting everybody know I made a mistake. Here's what I did to fix it. Here's what I learned from it. I want you all to know that so you don't make the same mistake I do. We are all celebrating that. Great job. Well done. That's amazing. And we have a channel that they talk to, a Slack channel. It's a Teams channel now. We changed it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Is that right? Yeah.
Fucking.
Teams is free now. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
amazing.
so far. So people, I literally go on and celebrate them making the mistake because they learned and grew.
That's amazing.
Now people are going to take more accountability for themselves. Now I have more freedom and more safety to make mistakes and to try new things and to come up with ideas and to put myself out there because I'm encouraged to learn and grow.
That sounds like a great way to grow culture.
Yes.
So flipping that, what's one cultural red flags that leaders often miss in general?
Yeah. Okay. Pick one.
Maybe two.
I would say the biggest cultural thing that leaders miss is, so another quick anecdotal story. It's happened several times. I'm in a room with an executive team and we're talking about what is our culture? What are our core values? What's our purpose? What does our culture look like? And the CEO said, "Oh, we tried culture. It doesn't."
Oh,
And I'm like, "Oh, please elaborate. What do you mean you tried culture?" And so the CEO said, "Look, we put in leave early and do beer Friday afternoons. We put in a ping pong table. We started to have karaoke nights. We were doing all these fun things, doing these events. And sure, everybody was enjoying themselves, but productivity took a dive. So I don't really believe that that you can implement culture and then all of a sudden productivity goes up. And I said, well, here's the problem. You didn't implement a culture. All you did was
Let's tell them.
well, no, you implemented the perks. Perks come after culture, not before. Perks don't create culture. Culture creates the opportunity to put in perks. So if you have a culture of accountability, so you've set the system up for accountability and making mistakes. If you have a culture where people are able to self-manage more so they can have direct conversations with the people they need to rather than bringing in a manager to have a conversation because they have an issue with somebody else. You teach them the skills of having critical conversations and critical thinking, and they start coming up with their own key performance indicators and performance metrics and results and goals. Now you're going to get more engagement because they own their job. And if they own their job, they're going to be more accountable for it and happier. Now you're building this culture. Then when people start hitting all of these self-made KPIs, start giving the perks. So we have it backwards. You know what?
So that's the first downfall that people are doing is
Yeah.
they're giving the perks
They
to
give the
the culture.
perks and say, is this culture?
Present me with culture.
And so I tell them you have to create a self-managing, high-performing culture of interactivity and self-management. Then you can put in the perks. So people will be happier already. Now you're adding those elements in. And so they're happy and they're getting rewards for, hey, if everybody hits their numbers by 3:00, we're logging out.
Yeah.
That's a perk.
It's sunny out. Let's go.
And so at my old company, when we had people in physical location, we have, it's the hottest day of the year. I'm going out for slushes. We're all going to meet in the back. What do you want? I'd take a slush order and I'd go out and bring it. And then we'd meet in the back and chat and whatever. Oh, guess what? It's a long weekend coming up. On Friday, if everyone hits their numbers, I don't care if you hit it all by 9:00 in the morning, you're gone for the weekend.
Nice.
You can leave. And if somebody in your department hasn't hit their numbers yet, your department stays to help that person until you can all leave together. Because it's about teamwork. And this is how you build the culture.
Okay. So what was the number 2?
So number 2 is when people say, I want results. I don't care about the culture, the fluffy stuff. I want results. They typically will tell people what they want, right? I want you to do this. I want you. And then you get that micromanaging. And sometimes micromanaging comes out of fear. It's fear of not getting it right, fear of letting it go to other people to take care of, fear of mistakes happening, costing money. Sometimes that micromanaging, it's regular human fear. Sometimes it's the need to control, but often it comes out of fear. And it's about letting go of that and letting people be human. And if you start to let that go and start to view yourself as, I am here to support everybody else because they're the ones supporting our clients. And so I'm here to help them. And if I'm here to help them, then the attitude is different where it's like, go, you're free to make your mistakes. I'm going to make tons. And in fact, as a leader, my mistakes are probably more costly than your mistakes. I might make a mistake in our strategic direction. I might make a mistake by partnering with the wrong people. Those are costly mistakes. So if I'm asking you to forgive me of my mistakes and let me learn, then I need to reciprocate.
We're getting close to the end of this episode. So I wanted to ask 4 closing questions for you. Looking back, what was the silver lining of the business collapsing?
Thanks for that. The silver lining was a deeper realization of what is my passion and purpose in my adult life. And that is ways to help entrepreneurs and their businesses grow to whatever level of success looks like for them. And so that has led me to executive coaching. I do uh, training for an accelerator program for EO across North America, workshops, keynotes, and my wife and I's current company, Vea, which we hire out fractional virtual staff to companies across North America.
Amazing.
And they're Canadian. There's no offshoring. So we hire only Canadians. So we help Canadian economy and we hire them out to companies across North America. So everything I do now, publishing of the book and speaking on that and looking at a couple other books coming up next year is all aligned with that passion and that purpose. And so I feel actually even I did this. Yeah.
Amazing.
So thank you for asking for that.
So that actually kind of leads into my next one. What's something about your entrepreneurial journey that people don't see? The things that may not actually have made it to LinkedIn or the book.
I think similar to a lot of entrepreneurs where, we don't typically advertise all those times where we are depressed, we're having a rough go of life. I don't know how many times I myself, and I've heard from many other entrepreneurs say, forget this. I'm going to get out of this business. Like I'm tired of it. I don't want to deal with the issues anymore. And, the next day you find some new little spark and then you just keep going, or you get this nice comment from a client or an employee says, this is the best place I've ever worked. And you're like, okay, keep going. You don't see those happening all the time. And again, back to that grit and resilience, it keeps coming back to that is you just find those little moments of gratitude just to keep going. And then so you see all the stuff like here are the lessons I've learned and here are the things we're doing and here's advice we're giving, but you don't see those other times where the head's in the pillow and you're like, I don't know if I can keep going. Yeah.
So, with that in mind, who would you give thanks to?
Yeah, I would give thanks to first of all my wife for sticking with me through some really tough times, and that's been a blessing for sure. I would give thanks to my parents. My past dad, he passed away earlier this year, and definitely my mom. Her and I have become a lot closer because my dad and I were the tight ones,
Mhm.
and she's a phenomenal woman. So they brought me up with a lot of the values I still hold true. My EO forum group, again, they helped me through some tough times. I've been in EO for this is my 25th year, and some of the members in that group have been with me the whole time. And
Incredible.
so the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
Speaks to the bond.
Yeah. And so they've been a very good support network. It was one of the EO the forum members said to me, Nick, when I said I don't know what I'm going to do now, I've lost it. How am I going to rebuild? He said, look, you can take that last 20 years of experience and lessons you've learned, and you can probably do the same in a matter of much fewer years. And that gave me some energy to rebuild. So that that network and EO has been in general has been I credit every ounce of any success I've ever had to EO in some form or another. So that's definitely something I hold true to my heart. I'll,
That's
I'll
great.
be a lifer there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely have to share that with them. When you look at your career now, the coaching, the mentoring, the writing, what does success mean at this stage of your life?
Yep. Success is, I used to think success was building this big company with lots of awards and helping, the people in the company still noble. But I thought success was building.
Mhm.
And now I believe that success is the amount of people that I've been able to positively affect.
Hmm, that's beautiful. That brings me back to somebody else, not ever on the podcast, but when I was working in door to door, they were talking about a sign of a great life was how many people that show up at your funeral.
Right.
And we originally, you and I were supposed to have recorded this a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
I had a friend's close family member of theirs passed away, and that was reiterated by who showed up for, in this case, my friends wasn't so much for the family member, although we've met them, but it was who showed up for that
To
friend.
support your friend through
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And then by proxy, I would imagine if it was me at a funeral or something like that, I hope that that room is full of everybody I impacted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like that.
That's a nice ode to your friend too.
Yeah. So if you could go back and talk to yourself right before things began to slip, what would you say?
100% beware the hubris. All that success, I was ignoring red flags. I didn't think I was at the time because, I'm known for being not too, I don't want to be out in the public. And I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned I don't want to be famous or anything like that. So, a little bit more low key and it'll get success if you have it long enough. And there's all these people telling you, it got to my head a little bit and I became overconfident in my decisions because all my decisions were working out. So now I'm like, well, whatever decision I make, it's going to be great. And so beware the hubris because success is definitely a devil in disguise with when hubris is in the mix.
Well, the upside about this podcast, I think a lot of people will be able to feel your emphasis on learning. And it sounds like you have learned from that.
Yeah.
And given the opportunity that you have now with your wife in the business, I would wager that the hubris isn't going to play as much of a role in this. That concentration of 20 years of knowledge being condensed now into this next venture. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see that.
Thank you.
Where can people go to find you and give support?
So veapros.com is the fractional remote staffing company. If people are looking for executive assistants, bookkeepers,
Mm-hmm.
fractional marketing, fractional operations help, you can go to nickthompsonbooks.com. That's
Okay,
where my book is on the big story and the 13 biggest pitfalls of business and how to avoid them. That came out
perfect.
of that. And you can email me at nick.thompson@veapros. I'm happy to connect, and LinkedIn, of course.
Fantastic.
Happy to connect with people. Be a pleasure.
That's what I love about the Calgary community is everybody's so willing to open up and share, and that's how this came to be. So I have to give a huge shout out to your friend
Yeah.
and one of my former guests on the show, Daniel Salisco.
Yeah.
Without that, it wouldn't have been possible, but it just kind of speaks to the community. Once again, for the people that made it all the way to the end, we really appreciate you. Obviously, you are adamant about making improvements in your life or learning from the guests that are on here, but keep sharing this. That's what keeps me going. Just like Nick was mentioning, those little praises that you get from an employer or a customer. Same thing happens with the podcast. Each time somebody says, "Hey, I really appreciated this episode," I get a little more juice, I get a little more gas in the tank, and we keep going. So thank you very much. Let's get after it. I
Right
appreciate
on.
that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you.